When I was 10 years old, I told my mother that I was going to be a professional singer one day. And she just kind of looked at me and raised those painted on eyebrows and pretty much said, "Oh, that's nice, honey." But in my little mind of a kid, I was going to be a singer when I grew up. My mother didn't know what child she was dealing with, because by God, I was going to be a professional singer come hell or high water when I grew up. And I guess my mother didn't fully grasp the magnitude of this little goal-driven monster that she had on her hands. My earliest memories of music in my house was my older sister Marlene, who was 13 years older than me. She was playing her 45 records on her little record player, and I just remember how cool she was because she was a teenager and she was playing all the hits in our little bedroom. And then there was my mother, who was playing Joan Baez and Judy Collins. And I just remember Joan Baez's voice, that angelic, high falsetto, soothing voice of hers. I think she was probably the earliest influence of me wanting to be a singer, was Joan Baez.
With all their might, laugh and laugh the whole day through, and half the summer's night. Donna, 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 donna.
My sister played guitar. She was the first guitar player in the family. And then my mom picked it up, and she had a cheap guitar. She used to take camping, and she played Joan Baez songs and all the folk songs of the day. And I knew that at some point I was going to be the next guitar player in the family, for sure. So my mom played that cheap guitar for a while. And then my dad surprised her with a classical guitar, Federico Garcia, handmade in Spain. And it even had the year that it was made handwritten inside of the guitar. This thing was beautiful. My dad saved up, I think, a whole month's pay for this guitar. So in school, we had music time, and each kid got to play some sort of simple instrument, like the harpsichord or the sticks or the triangle. But my instrument was the tambourine, because I loved to keep a beat. It had the jingle jangle going on, and it had the drum. I love the tambourine. But apparently I couldn't sing very well, because my kindergarten teacher made a point to put it in my report card that I couldn't sing simple songs in tune. But apparently I must have gotten better, because by the third grade I was singing in the school choir, and I sang in the school choir all the way up through my freshman year in high school. So I remember the first albums I ever owned: Diana Ross and the Supremes, and the Beatles' Abbey Road. It was the song "Oh Darlin'" that I used to practice with my hairbrush in front of the mirror, and I think that was the time that I was really honing in my stage show. When you told me you didn't need me anymore, well, no, I nearly broke down and cried. Oh, darling. By the time I was 9 years old, I am begging for a guitar, and by this time we had moved to California, and my dad took me down to this big department store. It was called Gemco, and bought my first guitar. It was really cheap, had steel strings. Mother put nylon strings on it so I wouldn't kill my fingers. So my dad signed me up for group lessons at a community center, and I think I learned 3 chords. But hey, those 3 chords was all I needed to know. So after my freshman year, I was pretty much done singing in a school choir. I wanted to play my guitar and sing and kind of get a little bit more serious with my music. And so my mom stopped playing her Federico Garcia, and she gave it to me. So now that classical guitar was mine, and I got signed up to take guitar lessons at Tiny More Music Center in Sacramento. My teacher was named Gilda Taffet. She was an extremely accomplished classical guitar player. I think she played violin and some other instruments. She also had a gig on the side where she played her classical guitar at weddings, kind of ambiance music. And she knew that I sang, and so she asked me if I would sing with her at some of these gigs. And I'm like 15 years old, so this was pretty exciting. So we'd hop in her VW bus and we'd go to these weddings, and I'd sing and she'd play guitar. And it was, I don't know, a few months into this, we were rehearsing in one of the rehearsal studios there at Tiny Moore, and this man comes up to the door and he asks me if I'd be interested in auditioning for his band. And I go, well, I'm only in high school, so I'll have to ask my parents. But it was a bluegrass band, and since my dad was from Kentucky and this was kind of his music, he signed off on it. I was shocked, but he bought off on me being in this band. And so I went and auditioned for them, and back at this time I still kind of have that high falsetto voice, that whole Joan Baez sound, and I really hadn't found my rock voice yet, so I was singing in this high falsetto, but it fit in bluegrass. It really fit that genre. So I went and auditioned for these guys with my parents in tow, and they gave me the gig. And I remember playing a couple of places. I think it was like twice I played with these guys because it was just kind of a logistics nightmare. I'm in school, I had to get up early the next morning. My parents had to come with me to the gigs. But I remember the first gig we did was at this really dive bar called Doty's, and I think it was along the river or something outside of Sacramento. And then I think we played one more gig, and that was it. I just couldn't sustain this any longer. I'm in high school. I knew that I was expected to go to college. However, I was only interested in music, so I figured, well, I guess I'm going to be a music major in college, whatever that meant. But I figured, well, I must have to have some sort of a degree to be a professional musician. So I went to college, and guitar was my applied instrument. And Gilda had prepared me a little bit for this and taught me a little bit of music theory, and I realized right off the bat, even before I started college, I hated music theory. It was like math. I wasn't good at math. And so here I am at college, and I'm a guitar major, and there's one other guitar major. And then there was the music department director who didn't believe that the guitar was a bona fide, legitimate classical instrument. And then it came time for what was called performance analysis. And what that is where all the music majors have to play their instrument or sing or whatever their applied instrument is amongst their peers and be judged by their peers. Also, the head of the music department is there as well. So I had these 3 classical pieces, and I am practicing until my fingers are bleeding. I think my other classes are falling through the wayside because I was so determined I was going to impress this music director with my guitar playing and these classical songs. So the morning of, I get all dressed up in a skirt that my best friend Susan from high school had made me, handmade this patchwork skirt, and I was very excited. So I get there. I think I'm going to throw up beforehand. I was so nervous. But I got up there and you could hear a pin drop, and I played these songs flawlessly. I mean, just not one mistake. So when I'm done, the class all gives me a little applause, and the music director immediately goes, let me see that guitar. How much did you pay for that guitar? $1.95? And I'm looking at him going, what did he just say? I was like in shock. I couldn't believe what he was saying to me in front of the class. So I got up and I handed him my guitar, and he goes, oh, Federico Garcia, yeah, I guess it's a nice guitar. You just made it sound cheap. I was mortified. I was humiliated. I felt this big. And I knew that was it. I was going to drop out of the music program. Up until that point, I had been struggling with music theory. I had been struggling with his attitude towards me, and I just didn't feel welcomed there. And then that was the last straw. I got humiliated in front of the whole music department. So I quit. So I finished up the semester, and then I decided I was going to drop out of college. That summer, I went out and fought fires, and then got into my first serious relationship, and then ended up getting married to my first husband, who was in the Army, and we got shipped off to Germany, and I had a kid in between that. And it wasn't until like our second year living in Germany where a coworker of mine told me about this beauty pageant, and it was called Miss Bomberg. But it really wasn't a beauty pageant of sorts. We didn't have to do swimsuit or evening wear or anything like that. It was pretty much a talent contest is what it was. So anyway, I signed up for this talent contest, and I decided I was going to do a heart song called Raised on You. I needed a piano player, and I found this guy who was pumping gas there on post. He was an American who was living in Germany, and he was an unbelievable piano player. So he became my accompanist, and we did this song, and that was the performance where I really and truly found my home on stage playing rock, found my rock voice, and I think that was the first time that I knew that, okay, I'm going to be in a band. This is it. This is my destiny. I'm definitely going to be in a band. Anyway, so I won second place, which is fine by me. And the guy, the piano player, he had a band that he was playing around clubs in Bamberg. And I got to sit in with him and his band every once in a while. So now I'm like, ooh, this is what it's like to be in a band. And I wasn't really in his band, but he let me sit in and stuff. And it was really fun. And then it was time for me to come back to the States. So I was getting divorced from the first husband. I came back to the States as a single mother with a kid in tow, and I ended up in Sacramento. And after my little taste of being in that band in Germany, I thought, okay, this is what I want to do for a living, so I'm going to definitely put my card out there and see what happens. And back in those days, you didn't have the internet or anything like that. What you did, you put a little index card up on the bulletin board at the local music store. And the biggest one at that time was Skips Music in Sacramento. So I don't know, I said rockin' lead singer looking for a band, great stage presence. I don't know what I put on there, but I thought, okay, I'm gonna put this card up and just see what happens. Well, I got calls, and I got a call from this one band who actually had some gigs happening in the future, and they were looking for a singer. So I went and auditioned for them. It was a new wave band. They did, U2 and Flock of Seagulls and stuff like that. And it was music I really wasn't familiar with, so I had to kind of learn a new style of music with this band. And we only played one gig. We played at the Radisson Hotel, some sort of private event. And then after that, the band broke up, and I don't even know why. I don't even remember, but that would be the theme that would keep going on throughout my musical career, where bands just come and go. So after that band broke up, I was not having a great time living in Sacramento. My house was burglarized. I was living in a really crappy neighborhood, and I was just kind of having a hard time getting myself integrated back into living in the States, because after living out of the country for a few years, it's almost like your whole credit history erases. Well, it did back then, and you had to kind of start all over. I couldn't even get my utilities turned on without my parents co-signing. It was crazy. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to move back up to Redding and just kind of chill out and try and find my way just being back in the States and live pretty quiet. But I thought, okay, but I'm still going to be in a band. So I put my card up in the local music store up in Redding, and I thought, okay, this is a small town. I don't know how many bands are here, but I know that there were a few that were playing. So a band called me. They were a house band at the Holiday Inn or something like that, and I auditioned. I think I did a Laura Branigan tune, Gloria, and I didn't get the gig. I bought a new outfit and everything, didn't get the gig. I'm like, okay, well, I wonder what other bands are in town. This is a small town. And then this band called Uptown calls me. Now, I remember Uptown when I lived in Redding the first time. They've been around a long time, and I remember I wasn't of drinking age, so I couldn't see them, but I had a friend that knew their lead singer, and I thought, ooh, that's really cool. You know, somebody that's a lead singer in a band. So it was this band, and they had lost that particular lead singer. So I got my new clothes. I took my cousin in tow with me, and I went to the Shasta Inn where these guys were the house band for. And it was during the day, and I went up there and I auditioned with Tina Turner's What's Love Got to Do with It. And I just remember just getting up there and just giving it my all, my whole big blown Tina voice, you know. And my cousin's sitting out there going, Oh my God, she had no idea that I could sing like that. And when I came off stage, she's like, oh my God, I had no idea. And anyway, I got the gig. And now I was the lead singer for the Uptown Band. Like I said, we were the house band for the Shasta Inn. We ended up playing a few gigs up like around the surrounding towns. But for the most part, it was my full-time job to be at the Shasta Inn 6 nights a week. So Uptown Band played dance music, the Dazz Band, Shalimar, just this R&B, electronic drums, big heavy beats, but just Madonna, just real dance music is what Uptown played. And it was a lot of fun. It was a really fun band. I mean, if you wanted to get up and dance, that was the band to see.
The operator says this was no mistake. A big connecting every move you make. I hope you're ready to do me right. I'm gonna operate my love tonight. Operator, this is an emergency. Operator, baby, don't hang up on me. Operator, this is an emergency. Operator, operation that body. Operation on me. Operation that body. Take control of me.
So the first couple of nights during the week are pretty dead. You just had your businessmen that stayed at the hotel to come in, and the cocktail waitress is blowing the candles out already. You're not even in your third set yet, and she's already blowing the candles out on the tables, and you're playing to nobody, and the bartenders are telling you to turn it down. And so those are pretty rough nights. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday nights are pretty rough. And then the weekend would come, and then everybody in town would boil into this place, and it was standing room only. You couldn't get in unless somebody left, and it was really fun. Every once in a while, we got a chance to play Doc's Sky Room. Doc's Sky Room was a big rock club in Redding. It had been a restaurant for years and years, but now it was a big rock club. And they catered to the big touring road bands that would come in, that came in from all over the United States. And these guys had the big hair and the big light show and the fog machines and the whole 9 yards. And every once in a while they would let Uptown Band play there, and I think it's just because we were a local band, we had a big following, and they knew that they could draw in a crowd. And it was a big deal. We would have to get a sound man, have to rent a sound system, had to get lights, and the whole thing for this big show that we were going to put on. And it was fun. They would line up out the door. It was a big party, and we'd have the big party afterwards out in the parking lot. It was huge to play Doc's Sky Room. So I did this for a couple of years with the Uptown Band, but we had a big blowout one Memorial weekend. Our bass player got so drunk he couldn't even play. He couldn't even stand up. And this had kind of been a little ongoing theme with him. We were having trouble with him, and that was the last straw. I was mortified, and I went out to my car, and I said, this is it. I'm going to quit this band. And I figured, I could work the rest of my singing career singing at the Shasta Inn, but yeah, I needed to move on, and this was a perfect opportunity for me to move on. So I quit Uptown Band, and I decided I was going to try my luck with Sacramento again. I wasn't ready to actually move to Sacramento, so I was still living in my trailer, but I did drive to Sacramento. I put my card back up at Skips, and I had a tape now that I had made at Doc's Sky Room, and I shipped that off to an agent there in Sacramento. And I thought, okay, well, we'll see what happens. And then I drove all the way back 2.5 hours back to my house in Redding, and I get in the front door, and the light is blinking on my answering machine, and it's from an agent in Sacramento. He said that there was a band that he represented called Tight Quarters that just lost their singer. They had been auditioning far and wide for a singer. Oh my God, apparently, I don't know, up to 100 people I think they auditioned all over California and in Nevada. They just couldn't find anybody, and they had a male singer before, but they were open to a female singer. So I said, okay. So I got back in my car that day after driving all the way up to Redding. I drove all the way back down to Sacramento, and I met up with these guys that evening. I was very intimidated because these guys were a big touring band, and they had the big hair and and everything. And I thought, man, I don't know if I'm going to be good enough for these guys. But anyway, I auditioned, and I did one song, and they said, "You're hired. You're hired. This is it. You're hired." It's like, oh, okay. He goes, "Can you be ready to go on the road in 3 days?" I said, well, how many songs do I need to learn? So they gave me a list. I think I had to learn at that point because they knew that I didn't have time. So I think I learned about 6 or 7 songs, which was fine. And the rest of them I was just going to be singing backup and just basically kind of faking it until I learned more songs with these guys. I had no idea what kind of song lists they had. I had no idea what the rest of their songs were. But their first gig happened to be a backup in Redding. And this was at a rock club called The Bottom Line. It was pretty new. It was Doc Skyroom's now a big competitor. So they had a lot of people now have been shifting from Doc's going over to The Bottom Line to see these touring bands. And it was a big place. So I show up there in my gig clothes, and here comes the band in this big giant box truck with all this equipment and like a couple of roadies and all this gear being pulled out of this truck. And I'm looking at this going, oh my God. This is a big deal, and I'm in this band. So these guys get up on stage. I was told that I was going to probably come in 3 songs in. So I'm watching them from the sidelines, and they break into this song, and the aircraft landing lights are just like going and fog machine, and all of a sudden these guys come running on stage with their hair and their crazy outfits and just rocking guitar, and they're playing some song by Rat going, lay it down, lay it down. I'm going, oh my God, what did I get myself into? These guys were hardcore, and I'm like, oh shit.
Did someone say turn it up?
Okay, so the lineup of this band was Spike, Chris Orberg on the drums, and he had this big cage that he played in and on and hung upside down, and oh my God, it was insane. This guy was this unbelievable drummer, but he had this cage that he worked out of. And then there was Mike Myers, which we call Sluggo, on guitar. He came from the Midwest, from Nebraska. And then there was Chris on bass. We called him Martin. And then there was Paul Taylor on keyboards, but he also played amazing rock guitar. Paul was an amazing, accomplished musician, classical pianist, unbelievable guitarist. I mean, he had the whole package going on. Plus, he had this crazy stage show that he did. His antics were funnier than hell. And yeah, I toured with this band up and down the state for quite a while. It was a lot of fun, man. We had a huge following, big show, and we were probably down in Lompoc or someplace, I don't know, some big rock club, where we were told that the band was breaking up. And I was like, oh man, I really thought this was the band that was going to get me a record deal or something, because they had originals that they were playing, and you know, they had a manager and agents they were working with, and I thought, okay, we're going to get a record deal. And this time there was a band called City Kid that was playing up and down the state, and they were kind of like our competition. Well, those guys ended up being Tesla. Anyway, we were breaking up, and I thought, okay, well, back to the drawing board.
There's a story in my eyes. Turn the pages of design. Now it's time to trade those dreams for the rush as passes by. I can feel you
played all of our gigs that were still under contract, I went back up to Reading and regrouped again. But this time, by the time I got it back into my trailer, I go in there and there's a blinking light again on my answering machine, and it's from an agent in Sacramento. And at this point, I was a known entity with the agents and managers, and they knew Tight Quarters broke up, singer available, other players available, and I was told to come back down to Sacramento and audition for a band called Prima Donna. Now, I'd heard of Prima Donna. I had been seeing their playbills on the tables in the clubs that Tight Quarters was playing, and I knew that they were a big touring band and they were working, but I was kind of leery of the whole all-girl thing, because back in the day, all-girl bands were kind of manufactured by the record industry. They were a shtick. They didn't really play instruments all that well. They were just an act. And I wasn't really interested in that. Everything that I'd heard out there so far with girl bands were pretty cheesy. But I thought, well, hey, I need a gig. I need a job. I got to pay my rent, and these girls are working, so I'll go ahead and audition for them.
We had been through a number of women all day long coming in and showing us their best shot to see if it was going to be cohesive, and it wasn't. It was a nightmare of a day. Oh my God, personalities galore, horrible singing. It was awful. Crazy personalities and idiosyncrasies, and so everybody was exhausted. They wanted the day to be over with, and we had one more.
So I show up to this little farmhouse in Sacramento, and I'm walking up the little walkway, and I hear this band playing, and I thought, wow, okay, that's like a real band. I hear guitar, and I hear, this is like kind of a real deal here. I walk in, and there's 3 girls sitting in that living room. Their little drum set was kind of scrunched in the corner, guitar player standing here, bass player over here, and they welcomed me, and we went into, I think, Mission of Mercy right away from the motels. Everybody kind of knew the same songs at the time, so man, I just played with these guys, and I'm looking at them going, oh my God, I'm looking around this room, and everybody's like playing for real. This chick guitar player was amazing. She was just shredding right off the bat, just like, it's like, and then the drummer. Anyway, I was like, okay, I think we've got something here. I think we got something here.
And so I went off into the other room because at that point, like I said, I'd had it, and I just went off into the other room and thought, well, I'll just listen from over here because I don't have high hopes. So immediately, though, when it started, it was surreal, and so I tiptoed back over to where the room was that we were holding the audition in, and I peeked around the corner, and I'm looking at the band members, and each and every one of them are looking at me, and as our eyes are connecting, we're going, okay, don't look too excited, don't give it away. And so anyway, one song finished, and then another song, because you gotta do another song. You can't just like say, yes, we want you after the first song. So we went on, and I think they did 2 or 3 songs or something, and clearly was going to work.
So I think we played a couple more songs, and they're looking at me, and I'm looking at them, and I'm thinking, okay, I hope they liked me, because no one's saying anything. And then I think their guitar player said, I think you got the gig. But then this other girl comes out of the room, and she was Patty. She was their manager, and she said, well, we've got something to tell you first, though, so you might want to sit down. And I'm going, oh my God, what could this be about?
Yeah, so we had one thing we had to tell her, though. We had to let her know that, we were all, by and large, for the most part, most of us were gay, and back then, that was not something that was easily accepted, and so we needed to get that on the table.
Yeah, it was nothing. I said, hey, more dudes for me. I don't care. Well, let me tell you about little Patty Miller, our manager. She was a rock star. This chick had a head for business, man. She was the manager, and she was also our sound and lighting engineer and our truck driver and everything. She was everything. She got us the gigs. She got us paid. She dealt with those slimeball club owners, those slimeball agents, and oh God, what she had to endure just to get us paid was crazy. And her partner at the time was Peggy. That was our guitar player. Unbelievable guitar player. Oh my God, Peggy played guitar better than any other band I've been in because she played not only extremely well and technically just as good as all those guys, but she played from her soul. We just clicked on a soul level musically. It was crazy. I mean, these girls really knew how to play their instruments. And it wasn't just technically good, but like I said, we meshed immediately. And I thought, you know what? This is the band. I thought Tight Quarters was going to be the band. I'm like, nope. We got the all-girl thing going on. This is the band that's going to make it or break it. This is the one. This is the one. And off we went, man. It was the all-girl circus. We had so much fun on the road. Oh my God, an all-girl band playing that were like sisters. We laughed. I mean, the stories that we get back together and tell and talk about, it was just so fun. So we ended up playing this one rock club in Las Vegas called the Moby Grape. And the Moby Grape was a showcase rock club. It wasn't affiliated or connected to a casino at all. It was a standalone rock club that was like in a strip mall, but it was big. All the musicians in town would come and see the bands play, to see who the competition was, to see who was up and coming, you know, just, it was kind of the scene, was this rock club. So when we got to play there, it was a big deal. We didn't know if record company industry person might show up because it was close enough to Los Angeles, you never knew. It was a very high pressure gig, and so we really had to put on a good show. One night this band came in from the Midwest. They were called Panic, and they were in Las Vegas to record an album, and they had a producer. And they came to see our band, and they were blown away, and the next night they came in with their producer in tow. And their producer, whose name was Lou Medell, he had quite a resume. He was highly impressed with the band. He came running up to us and said, "I'm going to make sure you guys get a record deal." He goes, I want to work with you guys. You guys are amazing. You're all-girl band. I've been looking for something special like this, and believe me, you guys are going to get a deal, and I'm going to make sure of it. And we're like, oh my God, this is it. I mean, we went back to our hotel room that night, and our eyes were like, ah! And I had to ask Peggy, I go, what's a producer? What does the producer do? And Peggy's like, oh my God, this is it, Jan. This is the big deal. This guy's can get us a record deal. He's the guy that hones in your sound. He takes you into the studio. He's the guy that makes or breaks the band. And like, oh my God, this is it. And now the roller coaster ride has started.
It was crazy adrenaline, crazy excitement. As you can imagine, you have a Hollywood producer who's very well established, and there was just enough of the validity to him that we all bought into and believed, and there was nothing wrong with that. But it was his inability to be able to deliver on his promise that ended up causing so much problems.
So the rest of the gig, we're hanging out with the producer and hanging out with the band Panic and going into the recording studio and listening to them and watching this producer in action, making all these high-powered phone calls and getting them session players who are very well known. And we're like, oh my God, this guy's really connected. Really, we thought this was it. And then we were done, and we continued on our tour and played all over the place. And at this point, though, Lou's telling us, okay, you guys need to quit playing gigs and need to start writing, and you need to just concentrate on making this album. And so we did, but we had to quit playing gigs, and that was what was paying our rent, and that's what we loved. So we all had to go get real jobs. It sucked. I had to go clean houses. Patty was now painting houses with her brother. I don't know what the rest of the girls were doing, but we all had to get jobs because we were getting this record deal, and we had to do whatever Lou told us to do. So we quit playing. So Peggy and I were trying to hone in our sound. We were writing and working, and we had already been writing songs even before we met Lou, but we're still trying to find, our niche in this whole thing.
We wrote a lot of songs, some good, some bad. The entire band was coming up with songs that we would record on our little cassette 4-track in our living room. Our drummer Tammy wrote a great song called Prisoner in Paradise, and we thought that could have been a commercial success.
Angela's been taking piano lessons for like 2 weeks now.
And I'm getting burnt out. I mean, I'm trying to raise a kid by myself. I moved into an apartment in Sacramento so I could be closer to the band. And I'm cleaning houses and I'm hating my life. I'm 25 years old. Things are not moving fast enough for me. You know, it's youth. I had no patience back then. And I was being wooed to come back to the Midwest. I had started a romantic relationship with the bass player of Bannock. And he's like, come back and live with me, and I'll get you in the studio, and you know, we'll get your demo out, and my dad can help. He's a rich guy, rich doctor, you know. And so I had stars in my eyes, and I'm thinking security, and I'm thinking promises, more promises. And so I decided to move back to the Midwest. Stupidest freaking thing I ever did. So now I had to break it to Peggy and Patty that I was leaving Prima Donna. And that was hard. There was crying involved, there was yelling and screaming involved. Patty was hurt. She felt betrayed.
Jan ended up leaving the band, and that was pretty difficult. For me in particular, it was watching her leave the band and taking her life in another direction that didn't involve us. Felt like it felt like a betrayal. And had I had better coping skills at that age, and I think all of us, had we all had better coping skills at that age, we would have embraced her decision to move forward in a different direction and saluted her courage. But at the time, it was devastating for us to lose her, and to lose her as a band member, and to lose her presence in our lives and as a friend. And again, for me, more particularly for me, because Jan and I had developed quite a soul sister relationship, and so I felt like I was losing that, and it was tough. It was tough on everybody. We didn't know what direction we were going to take at that point, and we all felt lost.
And I just couldn't see the forest for the trees. I was stupid and I was young, and now my 60-year-old self looks back and says, you know what, I should have gone to LA with these girls. That was the thing I should have done, and I didn't. Nope, I chose my heart over my head and went with this guy and went back to the Midwest and basically froze my ass off. So Peggy and Patty moved to Los Angeles to try and work it out, and I moved to the Midwest, packed my little Toyota Corolla with my kid in the back seat, and drove to Michigan City, Indiana, you know, the music capital of the world. So I did get into the studio, got into a really nice studio as a matter of fact, and did a demo. I did a song called Running Wild, and it was actually a song Peggy and I wrote. And I was just getting over pneumonia, and it took me like 3 months before I quit coughing that I could begin to sing. But when I was in that studio, I hit this high note in the chorus of the song, a note that I only could hit that one time. I don't know if I ever hit that note again, but it was pretty amazing that I hit that note. And I thought I had a really, really good demo. And so I made a crap load of copies of that demo, and I just started shipping it out everywhere. The bass player and I broke up, and at this point I had shipped my demo to this recording studio outside of Milwaukee that the bass player knew this guy. And so he loved my demo. He's like, yeah, come here and I will record more music with you. I'll get you a band together and you guys can start touring, and I even have a place for you to live. And he puts me down in this apartment below the studio, and it was this shithole, and I had to share my bathroom with everybody else in the house. Come to find out, he was renting every room in that house. But he did have a really nice recording studio, so I was very excited to be living there and being in the studio. And I did a lot of work in that studio as far as helping other singers out, but guess what? I never got any studio time in that studio. This guy was making money off of me by helping me get my band together, and I'll get to that in a minute, but he was making money off of the commissions because he was my booking agent, and he also rented me the sound and lighting equipment that he owned. So his money from me was me working in bars, basically singing in bars. He did get me a band together, and I called it the Jan London Band. I had changed my name at that point to a better, catchier stage name. I was introduced to a bass player named John Ianni, and this guy was an amazing bass player. If anybody played lead bass, this guy was a lead bass player. He played that thing like a lead instrument. And he was cordless, and he was all over the stage, and he was an unbelievable musician.
We are somewhere, and the sign is City Limits. Yes, City Limits, and we're here to see the Jan London Group.
This is for when I get too hot. They better put me out.
Right up his ass.
Jan!
Hey, that looks good.
Yeah, there you go. Take it all off, baby.
On the thing, you see it on the... Yeah, it looks okay. Superman.
Superman 2.
She looks like a red elf.
Hey guys, we really want this to sound great.
A red elf.
Okay, I mean,
Together,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3,
come on, let's hear it.
4.
That sounds great. That's good. Kind of about me that way. Why?
Jan, do you have any questions here? Do you have any questions about what I said?
Okay, guys. We'll see. It's 5 to 10.
Oh, 3 at a time. We got time.
What time are we playing here? What time are we playing?
I stuck Treat Me Right, I think it's like right before or after Run to You.
Oh, you got in the first set?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
Because
I
there's
can
already
dig
a
that.
pet band
We're only
for it.
playing till 1.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Screw it.
So what time are we starting?
Oh,
That's what I
about
wanted
10
to
after.
say. That's
Okay.
what I wanted to say. Next
In
song.
10 minutes, we'll be live.
No, no, no.
And we played all over the Midwest. I mean, my band was getting very well known, and I had my originals that I was playing, but honest to God, it was still the Midwest, you know, and I wasn't getting the recording time in the studio that I was supposed to get. And by this time, I had moved out of that apartment and moved into an apartment that was overlooking Lake Michigan. My son Brad was living with me. Being a single mom, it was really hard being on the road. Thank God my parents were retired and they were able to help me out a lot by taking care of Brad. When he was preschool age, it wasn't so hard because they could take him with them on their big 6-month excursions to Mexico in their motorhome. But when he started to become school age, it was getting harder and harder for me to be traveling like that. But my parents even at one point put him in school in Auburn where they lived until he was able to join back up with me in the Midwest.
So I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house. It actually went on for a number of years. I thought I was just, going to grandma's house was a reward for the summer. I could just go and get spoiled and do whatever I want. I didn't realize that mom was out there chasing her dream. She was grinding, and grandma was, helping her along really by taking me in for the summer. And I remember one summer in particular, they took me with them down to Mexico, and we drove the motor home. That was an interesting experience for a little kid, and we put the motorhome on a ferry and went all the way down to Puerto Vallarta, and I think we stayed down there like a month or so.
Anyway, so one winter too many. I was done. I was done digging out my car. I was done trying to get to gigs and blizzards, and I was really going nowhere. It was just a big named bar band in the Midwest. Everybody knew the Jan London Band, but that was it. No record company was knocking at my door, and my tapes were going nowhere. I was trying to send them out unsolicited. I didn't have any contacts, and they were just getting mailed back to me, or no response whatsoever. And so I decided, you know what? I've got to go to LA. So I made the decision. I called Patty. So she was like, yes, come to LA. You can stay on my couch and let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can get you something recorded, another demo or whatever, and we'll reconnect with Lou and see what he's up to, see if he can still help us or whatever. Just be in LA. So I drove my car, shipped Brad to California first. My parents came through with the motorhome, picked him up, and by this time my kid had been flying back and forth on airplanes by himself, from California and back to the Milwaukee area. And I landed in Los Angeles, did sleep on Patty's couch for a couple of months, got a job, and started just trying to work my way into the music scene in LA.
We did some studio work together, and our lives just started rebuilding where we left off, and it just felt like time had not passed. But just primarily Jan and I went on and started working on some private label stuff in the studio, and well, I don't know. The rest is history.
God, was it hard. Oh. When they say you're beating the sidewalks of Hollywood, you're literally beating the sidewalks of Hollywood. I tried to find every seminar, make the connections, tried to audition, went to cattle call auditions. Patty and I went back to the recording studio and recorded another 4-song demo. We did hook up with Lou, but we found out Lou was he had nothing going on. I'm not sure if he was actually the janitor for Camel MCA, just happened to know some people. To this day, it's a mystery to me about Lou Medell. But yeah, he had nothing going on. So that was a dead end. That road was a dead end as far as using him to get a record deal. But I tried everything I could, man. Met with a lot of people in the industry. It was always this close. I never did play in a band while I was there. I just hooked up with other musicians and recorded and just went to auditions. That's all I did. Just kept sending my stuff out. But everybody in LA is trying to be in the show business of some sort. They're trying to be screenwriters, musicians, whatever. Everybody was in the same boat there, so the competition was huge. So now I'm turning 30, over the hill, have a kid in school. I can't do this anymore. I just, I thought, this is it for me. I gave it one good shot of trying to make it big in the music business and following my dream, but I thought, okay, what can I do now that is kind of like in the music business, the same fun. And I thought, you know what? I always saw these DJs at the clubs that I would be playing at doing live remote broadcasts, and always in the back of my mind I thought, that would be a fun gig. It's a paycheck and that'd be fun. So I decided to go to broadcasting school. So I went to Huntington Beach to the Academy of Radio Broadcasting and got my FCC license, because back in those days you had to get a license to be a radio broadcaster because you were the operator of a radio station. And I became a DJ. So I worked all up and down the state of California working at radio stations, and I'm telling you, being a radio DJ and working in broadcasting is just as hard as the music business, man. You have to go knocking on doors, you have to be the squeaky wheel, you have to get these program directors to listen to your air check tape, and finally I broke into Sacramento, and after being in Modesto and Stockton and working at these little podunk stations, I thought, I'm going to break into Sacramento, which is a bigger market. And I had sent my tape to a program director in Sacramento, and he never gave me the time of day, wouldn't return my phone calls. And so finally, I sat in the lobby of that radio station until he would come out to see me.
Country 98.5 with a pair of passes to the Holiday Ice Rink at St. Rose of Lima Park. Just be caller number 9 right now, 766-5985 or 1-800-498-4985. Sacramento weather. Gonna have some clouds tonight with 30% chance of showers getting down into the low 40s. And tomorrow, good day to sit by the fire. 70% chance of rain and winds gusting. Highs in the upper 40s. Currently, it's 51 degrees.
Hey, everybody, this is Radney Foster.
This is Cam Phillips.
This is Tony King of Matthews Wright and King.
Today's Fresh Country Stars. Right here, right now. 98.5. It's not my usual time.
So I was hired to work weekends at that radio station, and subsequently worked at many different radio stations in Sacramento. I ended up being an airborne traffic reporter for Metro Networks, and I did that for 4 years, working in the backseat of an airplane, reporting the traffic. And then my music, really though, I really never really did much with my music. I played in an opera. A friend of mine was part of an opera company and asked me if I would be in the chorus, and so I had to learn Italian that summer and sing opera, which was really fun. And over the years, I just kind of found bands here and there. I thought I would think that I would want to get back into a band, and then I get in a band, and then I'm like, I don't want to do this. And the reason I finally figured out what was stopping me from being in bands after just a few months of gigging in a bar was that the dream was gone as far as being a famous person. And now I'm just playing in bands and playing in bars just to be singing, but I wasn't finding the thrill of it anymore, because the thrill back in the day when I was playing in bars was that chance of somebody's going to discover me. Well, now I'm in my 40s and 50s and no one's looking for me. And I just wasn't into it. And I tried probably about 4 or 5 different bands. I tried to do it, and every one of them I would quit after, 6 months. I felt old. I felt so old being up there. Yeah, it's a hard reality. And then I got the opportunity to sing the national anthems on my horse one year at a rodeo. And so I did that, and I did it for many years. I would sing the national anthem standing up on my horse and this and that.
beautiful voice, Jan London.
And then there was one year that I recorded a version of God Bless America. And it was the Celine Dion version. And my range was still in pretty good shape where I could hit a lot of those high notes. And I think this was probably around 2003 or something like that where I recorded this song. Well, my recording of this song got passed along to James Brown's manager. Now, James Brown manager happened to be the mother-in-law of a good friend of mine that was the captain of the horse group that I was riding with. Weird connection. And so she passes along my tape to her, and she put on this big Grammy party for James Brown. James Brown hosted this Grammy party every year in Los Angeles, and he had all kinds of people perform there, and it was the who's who in the R&B music industry. And she asked me if I would open that show singing that song, God Bless America. So my sister happens to own a Bob Mackie gown. Now, if you don't know who Bob Mackie is, he was the designer that dressed Cher, among other famous people. And she happened to own one of his sequence gowns that I fit into. So I wore this unbelievable Bob Mackie gown, and I opened the show with God Bless America at James Brown's Grammy party. And he had his own like a little award ceremony as well. And he was right there, front row, looking at me, and I could just see the silhouette of his hair as I'm singing this song. I was kind of coming down with a cold, so that I was mortified that I wasn't going to be able to hit these high notes. And I don't think it was the best performance ever, but it was good enough because after I was done, James Brown comes up to me, gives me a big hug, and says, "That was the best rendition of God Bless America I've ever heard."
What a riveting performance. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together again for Jan London. Yes, yes, yes. All right, we're going to get things rolling, and we're going to present our first honoree tonight.
I have to say, singing for James Brown was the highlight of my music career. I got to meet all these legends and sitting at the table with all these R&B music legends, Motown legends. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. So I decided to start writing my own music and doing my own music videos. And I got kind of good at editing, and I would put them up on YouTube, and I would get all of my friends involved, and we'd go out and do these shoots, and my friends would be actors, my family would be in it, and my husband would help me film, and God, so much fun. I would go in the recording studio and record these songs and then put a music video out, my own little MTV.
There's been a change in time, and I can't believe I'm still alive. It's a far, far cry from heaven to the highway. It's a long, long road between home
And then I decided I was going to do a concert on the couch series. And that was where I basically played a cover song a week, every single week for a summer. And I did this, I think, in 2015. And I would invite my friends, my musical friends, to come and sit on the couch with me. I actually had a little gal that was an American Idol contestant. She lives here in Wheatland, and she came and sat on my couch and we sang a song. And that was really fun. It was a lot of work though, because I had to put a song out a week. I had to learn the song, film the song. Oh God, don't ask. But that was a lot of fun. So I'm finding that my niche now is just me playing on my own terms. I don't necessarily need to be in a band. As a matter of fact, I just turned down being in a band. I said, you know what, dude, I'm going to quit on you in 6 months, so I'm just going to tell you no right now. A little fleeting part of me thought, ooh, that'd be fun. I'm like, no. You know yourself. You know you hate being in bands. It's that party is over. So it's all about the YouTube videos and, yeah, just doing my own thing. I'm finding my voice isn't, I don't have the range that I used to, like back in the day, and neither does Ann Wilson or Pat Benatar. It's called age, it's called hormones, and it's just kind of something we just have to live with and kind of redo our vocal style. And so I'm no longer singing those crazy belty songs that go really high. I can still belt, but I just can't go really high like I used to. There's no way I could hit that note that I hit when I sang Runnin' Wild. There's no way. But what I do tell people, I don't discourage you from your dreams. My God, I do tell people that do sing and sing well, I tell them, learn an instrument. And even if you sing kind of mediocre but you're a really good songwriter, I say learn an instrument and learn it well. That's going to be your saving grace. That's going to be your marketable asset when you're trying to get out there and trying to make it in the music business. If you are a songwriter and you play an instrument well, be it guitar, piano, something that you can accompany yourself, man, get really good at that and honing your songwriting and your singing. If you're already a good singer, that's a bonus. If you're a mediocre singer, that's kind of going third on your list. Learn that instrument. That's something that I wish that I had done more of, was kept up with my guitar and been more proficient at it. But don't give up on your dreams. Like me, you may not fulfill the dream that you had envisioned, that you're going to be some big famous rock star or a famous author or whatever it is that you're trying to be famous at. The entertainment industry is a hard road to hoe. Let me tell you, that's a tough road. But you may or may not make it. But if you don't make it, then make your dream into different versions of it. Like I'm doing the YouTube videos. I'm continuing on with my passion of music, but I'm doing a different version of it. I'm just keeping it alive and keeping it going and just learning how to navigate the waters of my creative outlets with my filmmaking, with my music videos, with my songwriting. I'm still doing it. I just know that I'm not going to be famous anymore, unless maybe I'm 95 and now I'm a novelty. Maybe. So being famous is a frame of mind. Fame and fortunes come and go, but you know what? Your talent, it lives on. Like in the famous words in the movie Flashdance from the 80s, you give up on your dreams and you die.
So music's always been a huge part of my life. Mom was not either practicing in her band or singing herself. There was always music playing. There was always music in the car, always music in the house. I couldn't imagine going a whole day without listening to music at all, and it's totally stuck. I'm still that way. In my spare time, I play guitar, but I'll play anything I can get my hands on, and I just love it. It's who I am. I hear music in my head, I feel it in my heart, and I have my mom to thank for that.